When sent by my parents in school days to have full immersion in France in 1971 in the summer holidays for a month, living in a French family, we were at table one evening and the family adjourned the eating session for a moment to see something that was a historic moment. It was the landing of Armstrong and company on the moon. And a few things had come out and were coming out of that American exploitation of human resources, very different from that of the then Soviet Union, who actually were the first to get into space, and to hear that famous comment of Yuri Gagarin, "God doesn't exist, we saw no trace of him out here," showing the mentality of atheistic thought, unreasoned and childlike. The Americans had a very different reaction. You may remember that something of the American instinct came through unexpectedly already in the 60s when the Beatles put their foot in it. And John Lennon said something which he didn't realize was very unwise in a continent which still was massively Christian, and they were boycotted in some areas as a result. You probably know what happened. Well, the spontaneous American spirit came out more than once in these space exploits. We were shown on screen what they were able to see in one moment of time, when eventually, instead of a succession of blurred images coming through the porthole, what we see also when we go into the atmosphere, the stratosphere, the clouds essentially, they passed that eventually and got beyond, and suddenly it was a very different vision they had coming through the porthole. For the first time they saw with their eyes the world. And there the clouds were part of something greater, and the form was very clear. And the comment of Armstrong was also very clear, very Christian-based. As he looked from his capsule at this little globe, he said to the ears of all mankind, "Strange to think that in that one small ball there's so much pain," indicating a man of interiority. But it didn't finish there. When they got to the moon, he had to bear the weight of history on his 2 feet, and he knew it. And he made that last step from the ladder to the, not earth but moon, and said those famous words, "That's one small step for man, one big step for mankind." And that went down in history. What is less known is that the verse that we have just read in the old translation of the time, "For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him might not perish, but have everlasting life," was left on the moon. And that was a quiet way of claiming the moon. It was, if you like, the flag, not just of America, but of Christendom. That was an interesting addendum. But it didn't finish there. When they returned to Earth, actually to the sea, they were retrieved and they were pretty accurate on the timing. But then something unexpected happened, at least for the viewers, and we were precisely the viewers live in this French family in 1971. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that before anything else happened, when they retrieved them from the water, as planned, and put them on the larger vessel, the chaplain of the American Naval Forces, or Air Force, wherever it might be, came to the microphone before the eyes of all mankind, perhaps even the Soviets included, and what did he do? He turned to Almighty God, the creator of heaven and earth, and sincerely, audibly, and publicly thanked Almighty God for this safe journey, thus claiming all conquest of science not for man. Which brings me to where I want to land. We think we are great sheikhs because we have managed to invent something. The word invent in Latin simply means to discover, invenire. We think we are great sheikhs because we discover something. Discover means just the same thing. We uncover what's there. In other words, we've not invented a thing. We've just discovered God's secret. In the time of so-called illumination, the Enlightenment, people thought they were pushing the frontiers further away and acquiring things which solved all the problems and mysteries. In fact, later scientists were beginning to realize that all the time all they were doing was discovering new problems. And one gets further into the problem until one can't escape it. There's huge order everywhere. Recently, much has been going around the cybersphere of this nature, of the dialogue between faith and science, faith and reason. There are quite a few very good ones, very Catholic ones, recently now being circulated, which indicate that actually we have nothing to be afraid of, that science is massively on our side. There are great documentaries precisely with titles of that nature, Faith and Science, that indicate that conclusively we know that the blood of the Lord, both on the shroud and in the Blessed Sacrament, are doing strange things with regard to the rules of science, as are those coming from statues, and making interesting analyses of the same from different sources. They are finding very puzzling things coming to the fore. And one interesting thing in recent times has been the way in which, when the present Holy Father was only bishop, he was Archbishop there in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, he is seen handling and having to handle a local Eucharistic miracle, where a host fell to the ground and was placed in water, but then started to do things, and what it did had to be analysed. It couldn't be kept secret any longer. And the results were very, very interesting, especially when, unknown to him, they were specimens handed over to the same one as had analysed in the 70s the miracle of Lanciano. And he, after getting to the end of his objective results, not knowing where they came from, said, "It's the same man," because there were properties which were unique to the sample. Now, all that to say that when it comes, therefore, to celebrating this holy season, it's something of the same. We have no need at all to be on the defensive when it comes to talking to people of little faith. They are, rather as in this gospel, afraid of the light, and therefore they will push it out by classic means. A whole smokescreen of confusion and noise in which all new information is excluded. The serene possession of truth never raises its voice. It is happy to know more and to collocate it in the serenely possessed total sum already acquired. It's all God's knowledge. Scientia means just knowledge, a participation in the Logos, who is aware, because he made them all, of all the rules of creation and how they are broken. They are being broken at every celebration. Right now, there will be a miracle. We can't see it, but the very fact that there are Eucharistic miracles, and many of which now have been analysed, indicate that we have power in our hands. So let's have the eyes of faith able to penetrate into the dark and to see that there's something huge going on before the eyes of our soul every time the risen Lord comes into the upper room as now and says, Shalom, peace be with you. Alleluia.